Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Just before midnight last night, my channel hit 400,000 subscribers. My channel reached 300,000 subscribers on June 3, 2020, so the channel has added 100,000 subscribers in 46 days. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed, who has supported me on Patreon, who watches my videos. It's incredibly encouraging to see this level of interest in my content, and I certainly hope that it continues to be helpful and interesting to people. For my 300,000 subscriber video, I reviewed my favorite movies, and I had a number of requests to review my favorite TV shows. So I thought this would be a good topic for this 400,000 subscriber video. As I mentioned during that 300,000 subscriber video, I have not watched a lot of television in the last 10 years or so this list may not contain as many recent entries. Now, going through this list of TV series, my original list was actually much longer than 10, so for many of these, there will be an honorable mention section. So I just want to mention some of the shows that I liked that didn't officially make the top 10. I like TV series for the same reasons I like movies, but there's something different about a television series. There's a better opportunity to really get to know the characters, and of course, that comes at a cost. The budgets are usually lower for TV series, and the actors are often considered not as talented as what we would see in motion pictures, although for many of the series that I selected, the actors in the series have been in motion pictures. So I think that idea about television actors being less than movie actors is really something from the past. It's an old way of looking at things that I think was definitely true during one time, but I'm not really sure it's the case anymore. The other thing I like about TV series is they become so refined over the years, especially a series that's been on a long time. Like if somebody looks at the early episodes of The Simpsons, it's a totally different show than what we would see today. Everything became more refined in that production. My review might contain spoilers. I'll put the list of series in the description in case anybody wants to look at that first before watching the review. Putting these in order was particularly difficult for me, but I had to make some tough decisions, so here is my list starting with number 10. For this spot I selected Modern Family. So this show mostly occurred in the last 10 years, 2009 to 2020. What I really like here is how cleverly written the show is, how they wove different experiences together to result in a story that was both funny and engaging. Now, to make this work, sometimes the narratives were a little bit forced, but overall I really found this to be an excellent show. Number 9 is ER. The show ran from 1994 to 2009. A lot of different people who were in this show would become famous eventually or were already famous, like Anthony Edwards and George Clooney, which is interesting because the same thing happened with St. Elsewhere, another hospital-based TV show. I didn't really see too many episodes of St. Elsewhere. The ones I saw seemed okay, but I didn't see enough episodes to include it as an honorable mention. The medical aspects of ER were sometimes a little too much for me. I don't like blood and gore, but the dramatic part of the show was really excellent, and I liked how the cast changed over the years, but the central style of the show really remained the same. It didn't really lose much when characters left and new characters came in. So it kind of morphed and developed over time. Number 8 is a show named Monk that ran from 2002 to 2009. We see Tony Shalhoub plays the character Monk, who is a consultant who works for the police department, and he also has OCD. The show is cleverly written, and I realize it's somewhat controversial because some people think that this show is really making fun of the protagonist for having a mental illness. But I actually don't think that's what it was about at all. I think Monk was portrayed as somebody who loved his wife very much. He lost her tragically, and this is what led to his OCD. I actually think they did a good job of humanizing this character, making him very relatable. If I were to make a criticism of the show in terms of the mental health aspects, my criticism would be that OCD doesn't remediate just because a stressor is removed. And we kind of see that here in this show. He resolved what happened with his wife, and he improves. There might be some improvement because of that, but again, I wouldn't expect it to be dramatic. An honorable mention here to the show Mentalist that ran from 2008 to 2015. Kind of a similar idea as what we saw with Monk, except in The Mentalist, the protagonist was passive-aggressive and manipulative. So a different approach, but again, kind of the same general idea. A consultant who solves crimes for the police. Moving to number 7, here I selected Top Gear. I'm talking about the one that ran from 2002 to 2015 with the original hosts, Clarkson, May, and Hammond. After that, I feel like the show really went downhill, although of course those three moved to the Grand Tour, which is also a good show. I not only liked the humor, but I liked all the cars. So it brings a couple of things together that I enjoy. I think my favorite part of the show is when they tried to build things that would usually epically fail eventually, really underscoring the importance of the engineering profession. Number 6 is Star Trek: The Next Generation. It aired from 1987 to 1994. There's so many things I liked about this particular Star Trek series. I really thought Patrick Stewart did an excellent job as Jean-Luc Picard. It had a decent budget, and I felt like, especially toward the end, the writing and the acting really just came together. All the characters kind of worked together well, and it was easy to get invested in each character. While on the topic of science fiction, a few honorable mentions here. Battlestar Galactica, 1978 through 1979. They couldn't keep it on the air because it cost too much, but it was really groundbreaking considering it was released just 2 years after Star Wars. They brought it back in 1980 for a little bit. It was awful. The production value was much lower. And in 2004, they brought it back. And that series was okay, but I felt like it lost too much from the original. I also wanted to mention Buck Rogers, 1979 through 1981. We see Gil Gerard and Aaron Gray in that show. The Greatest American Hero, 1981 to 1983. We see William Catt, Robert Culp, and Connie Selica. And I also wanted to mention the X-Files that had 9 seasons starting in 1993, and they also brought it back for 1 season in 2016. For somebody who's interested in conspiracy theories, like what it takes for somebody to believe in them, I think the X-Files really offers a lot of interesting perspectives. Moving to number 5 on the list, here I selected Friends that ran from 1994 to 2004. I did a separate video on this series. The show is just really well written, and the characters developed at a natural, unforced pace. 10 seasons was just the right amount of time. It was supposed to capture an exciting phase of life where everything was an option, and I think it did that very well. I was really impressed how the core personality traits stayed consistent through the show, but again, the characters were still allowed to develop. So it was just the right balance of something staying the same that should stay the same, with an allowance for changes in areas where we would expect. Now moving to number 4, here I selected The Simpsons. This premiered in 1989 and is still in production at the time I'm making this video. There are really so many things to like about the show, the use of multiple humor styles, the clever writing. They really make the most of the animation. They cover all types of topical events. One of my favorite actors is Phil Hartman. I did a separate video about him as well. He played Troy McClure on The Simpsons. An honorable mention here would be Futurama. It ran from 1999 to 2013. It's also excellent. I think really in many ways it's as good as The Simpsons, but it never really got the same recognition. Moving to number 3, for this position I selected Downton Abbey. This ran from 2010 to 2016. The narrative in the show actually starts in 1912 with the sinking of the Titanic and ends in 1926. In the show we see excellent attention to detail. The costumes, the mannerisms, the traditions of the time are really portrayed quite accurately. They took on complex social issues in the show. I really liked how the actual historical events influenced the family. So not only Titanic, but the First World War, the Irish War of Independence, and many other events. It really made the show well-rounded. The acting was good overall. I know many people think the acting was stilted in that show, but I think that was because of the time period they were trying to represent. Maggie Smith really stood out as an excellent actress in this show, but that's not really surprising considering her level of talent. What really stood out for me, I think, was the tenderness in the relationships between the characters. Again, especially considering it was covering a time period that was very formal. The character relationships really ran the risk of appearing cold and distant, but I think they did navigate around this brilliantly. The characters seem colorful, alive, and vibrant, even though they were at a time when emotions were supposed to be suppressed. So To get that out in the acting, I think, is really tricky. And again, overall, I think they did an excellent job in this regard. An honorable mention here to The Crown on Netflix. Another one of my favorites, but it just couldn't make the list against a show like Downton Abbey. TV series number 2 is The Amazing Race. It started in 2001, and again, at the time of making this video, it is currently in production. I know this is a reality show and a lot of people have strong feelings about those, but The Amazing Race is so much different than any other reality show. I think what I really enjoy about this show is how you get to see all different places in the world. You can look at the different cultures, the different customs. I've seen things on The Amazing Race that I'll never see in person. The actual excitement of the race is great too. I think they do a good job of building the tension and the drama in the show as the different teams race to try to win the prize. Now for the number 1 spot, this was so hard to pick, but I ended up with Law and Order. It ran from 1990 to 2010. What I really loved about Law and Order was how the police investigation side had an impact on the prosecution side. There are so many television shows that would stop at the arrest, right? That was the end of the show. But in one way, Law and Order really started at the arrest. That's when the show really got interesting. It was well acted, well written. They took stories from the news and they adapted them to stay fresh and current. We see plenty of famous guest stars in the show. Law and Order was really almost the perfect television show for people interested in both true crime and the law. There are a few things I always found funny about Law and Order. One of them was the incredibly obvious advice given by the captain or other supervisor during the investigation. Like it was never really intuitive. The detectives would come up and say, hey, this person has a motive and an opportunity. And the captain would always say something like, well, go talk to them. And detectives would look at the captain like that was the best idea ever. Like they never would have thought of it without that direction. Another part I found funny was whoever the homicide detectives were talking to, like witnesses or whoever, those witnesses would always just keep doing what they were doing when the detectives were talking to them. Like if they were at work or whatever, they wouldn't miss a beat. Like there were so many murders they were being questioned about, they couldn't take a moment to stop and talk to the detectives. Almost like they were saying, look, this is what I do all day. I do my job and I talk to people about murder investigations. I'm not going to take a moment to stop. If I did that, I would be stopped all the time. I think it was done to give an idea of how busy New York is and how everybody's doing different things. But they really should have had people just stop for a moment and talk to detectives sometimes. It got distracting with that in the background. But overall, again, I think the show was really excellent. I mean, it made my number 1 spot, so to me at least, it must have been pretty good. So those are my favorite TV shows. I would love to see what your favorites are, and if you have any reasons that you agree or disagree with my selections, please put that in as well. Thank you again for helping my channel reach 400,000 subscribers. It's really an honor to produce this content. It's so encouraging to have this level of support. It just really keeps me going day after day. Thanks again. I'll see you again soon.